Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binaries. So, you know how I've been obsessing over Welcome Home lately? So, yeah, your girl made an OC. Because of course I did. Her name is Mizzrabelle, and yes, it's supposed to sound like miserable. I just thought let me be cool, okay? Okay, I'm not cool, but let me pretend that I'm cool. So, yeah, this is Mizzrabelle. Mizzrabelle Mimsberry, or Mizzie for short. Mizzrabelle is, well, an odd character. Even while the show was airing, she is considered a bit of an odd one. She's actually very introverted and spends a lot of her time in her house just making dolls. Also, another thing about Mizzie is that Mizzie's actually blind, and if you're wondering, is it good to be working with a needle and thread when you're blind? Not really, but see, there's a weird thing about the way that Mizzie's eyesight actually works. So I kind of based it off of that, what's that one game where you see with sound, you pick up an object, then you throw it, and then the sound bounces off. It's kind of like that. I've seen one of my favorite YouTubers, Yub, play the game, so I can just put it in the description to do a better job of explaining what I'm talking about. So, yeah, that's basically how Mizzie sees the world, is that she sees with sound waves. So, she'll usually have some sort of music playing while she's sewing so she doesn't hurt herself. And also, another thing about Mizzie is that she's very close with Wally, to the point of even kind of considering him her brother, or at the very least, the closest thing she's ever had to a brother. To the point where she doesn't even call him Wally, she just calls him Brother Darling. Mizzie doesn't talk much, very quiet girly, but she does talk every now and then. Also, Mizzie actually has two mouths. There's the mouth on her face and the mouth on her back. The mouth on her back is her real mouth, and the mouth that has an easier time talking and eating. Mizzie's face mouth, the only thing it really does well is singing. She can't eat with it at all, and she kind of struggles to talk with it. Like, Mizzie sounds kind of like this, because she can't really talk easily with her face mouth. Like, her speech is very broken into a million pieces. Also, thing you're probably going to notice a lot more when I get later into the design is that Mizzie. So Mizzie's arms are actually based on the other neighbors in Welcome Home. Each one of her arms represents a different character, and, 6 of her arms represent a different character, with her legs representing Howdy and Poppy. Oh yeah, speaking of the other characters, I should probably explain how they get along with Mizzie. Let's start with Sally. Sally, well, she wants to include Mizzie in her shows, and Mizzie's trying her best, but the two don't really work well together because Mizzie doesn't fully understand the directions, and Sally's is... Both of them are struggling through, but offstage, Sally actually gets along very well with Mizzie. And, Sally won't ask her to act very much, partially because of stage fright, and partially because she's not very good at it. But she does know that Mizzie is good for making props and costumes, which is what she'll be asked to do much more often. Also, Sally has seen Mizzie's real mouth, but chooses not to say anything about it. She's like, you know what, I'm not going to acknowledge that. Just making the active choice to, you know what, that's not my problem. That's probably just normal. I'm gonna pretend that's normal. Next is Frank. Frank, okay, on one hand, he's fascinated by her and her very odd anatomy. Yes, he does know about her real mouth, and when she's talking to him, she's more likely to use the mouth on her back just to talk more clearly and convey more information. But on the other hand, Frank also has to prevent her from eating bugs that he wants to, like, get a better look at. He's like, oh, Mizzie, look at this bug. He'd be like, oh, Mizzie, look. Oh, Mizzie, come look at this bug, and don't eat it. But other than that, Frank finds this odd little girl peculiarly, I don't know if that's a word, but he finds her peculiar and fascinating. Let's see, who do we have next? Poppy. Poppy is very motherly towards Mizzie. She is towards everyone, but especially Mizzie, basically treating Mizzie like her own daughter. But the thing is that Mizzie has never really had a family before she moved to Welcome Home. No one really knows where she came from. So she just finds Poppy's affection odd. She doesn't understand why Poppy cares about her. It's just confusing for her. But Poppy still tries her best to be nice to her and have patience with her, even if she's still a bit reluctant to trust her completely. Next is Howdy. Howdy's kind of terrified of Mizzie. Like, I kind of partially based her on a spider, so that might have something to do with it. But just in general, she kind of weirds him out and also kind of scares him. Especially because she just says some very odd things to Howdy. Like, some very interesting things. Like, calm down. I'm not going to eat you if that's what you're thinking. Or, like, actually, I'm not going to eat you if that's what you're thinking. You might be poisonous, and you run the only shop in town. If you die, we all die. And Hazlitt's like, you know what? Good talk, Mizzie. Thanks. I practiced in the mirror. I can tell! Oh god, someone help me. Afraid of her. Like, someone walks into a shop and he just has the face of, help me. While still, like, wearing a smile, because, you know, you gotta be nice to the customers and all, but he's just like, someone help. Howdy, my dude. Also, I love Howdy's voice. I love all their voices, but that's not the point. I can go on that tangent another time. Anyway, her relationship with Barnaby, she actually thinks Barnaby is a lot of fun. She doesn't make jokes with him very often, but she does pet him a lot, and Barnaby's just accepted it. He especially likes it when she gives him ear scritches, because ear scritches are the best. Like, duh. Like, you could literally see his little tail wagging behind him. Like, I can just imagine Mizzie scratching one ear while Wally scratches the other. And Barnaby's just sitting there in pure bliss. Barnaby's also very huggy with her. And also the fact that Barnaby seems to be carrying around, like, a little horn or something. I don't know if it's just a sound effect or if he's actually carrying that thing around. But, because he has that, and because he talks a lot in general, he's actually very easy for Mizzie to see, so she tends to be around him a lot in order to use his voice to try and see a little bit more of the area around him. Because it's her best bet for seeing things. Next is Eddie. Eddie's actually the one who's talked to Mizzie directly the most, because he brings her mail, obviously. And he's actually one of the first people to meet Mizzie. Well, after Wally, but we'll get to him in a moment. But, yeah. Wally... Eddie actually brings Mizzie her mail, so he's actually talked to her, but because we've established that Eddie has bad memory, he actually repeatedly forgets her name several times and ends up calling her by a different name, like Mimsy, Molly, some another, and Mizzie's just too freaking polite to correct him. So for the entire episode, he'll just be calling her by the wrong name until someone, probably Frank, points out that that's not her name and reminds Eddie of what her name actually is. And she's like, oh, shoot. And he's just like, oh, well, shoot, Mizzie, why don't you tell me? And Mizzie's like, I don't know. Social anxiety, go burr. But anyway. Next, there's Julie. Julie's energy is a little much for Mimsy. Like, these two are golden retriever friend and anxiety friend. Like, Julie has, like, on one hand, Mizzie likes Julie. She thinks she's perfectly fun and nice. On the other hand, Julie's energy is a little much for Mizzie sometimes. So, like, as much as she enjoys spending time with Julie, she's absolutely going to need a break after spending time with her. And then, finally, there's Wally. So, Mizzie's actually very close with Wally. Wally seems to be the first person she ever met. Also, there's the fact that Mizzie actually kind of sees Wally as a brother, to the point of even calling him Brother Darling. As I mentioned with Poppy, Mizzie's never had a family before, so Wally's the closest thing she's ever had to it. As for how Wally feels about Mizzie, the feeling's mutual, actually. They're just sort of a pair of weird siblings. They're sort of like Gene and Tina from Bob's Burgers, except they're both Tina. And one of them's like a little bit of Gene, just because Wally is fabulous. But yeah, Wally is the Gene to Mizzie's Tina. They're very close with each other, but they know nothing about social interaction, so when they're going into something social that's on tub, they just kind of have to wing it and hope for the best. I imagine these two are really adorable when you put them together. They seem like a lot of fun. I've also been thinking of putting Mizzie into other Welcome Home AUs. If you guys want to see me design, or at least hear my thoughts on Mizzie in any other AUs, let me know down in the comments, because, I'd be happy to share. I'd be happy to share about this girl. I'd be happy to tell y'all some more about her. What else? I've mentioned how her arms are based on the other neighbors. Oh yeah, so her front hair swirl is obviously a reference to Wally. Little fun fact, actually, it goes the reverse way of Wally's. So Wally's goes from the bottom and up and swirls into the center, whereas Mizzie's goes from the top and swirls down into the center. So yeah, little fun little bit. The cinnamon roll hairs are reversed. Speaking of Mizzie's hair, her 4 little ponytails, the colors of them, actually have a specific reason for why they're grouped together. So the first 2 on the top of her head, the red and blue is Wally and Barnaby, best friends, and the yellow and pink are Frank and Julie, also best friends. So that's why those 2 are grouped together the way that they are. But I also combined Howdy's sort of greenish teal color with Eddie's purple, because they're the only 2 business owners in the entire neighborhood. And I put Sally and Poppy together partially because I didn't know what else to do. It's kind of process of elimination. But also it kind of works out in my favor because they're kind of opposite personalities with Sally being afraid of nothing and Poppy being afraid of everything. So, I don't know, it kind of played out well in my favor. You know, it's kind of convenience. Yay! I'm kind of low on things to say. I could answer some headcanon. Yes, how well put me. I could answer some headcanon questions about her in a minute. I can still talk about her some more, I think. Also, I was listening to the phone calls on the Welcome Home website, and I was just imagining Mizzie just sitting there. Because, like, again, I've mentioned before, she doesn't talk much. So, I can imagine her being the recipient of these calls, and she's just sitting there in awkward silence. She's like a calmer version of Gale. I don't know why I keep referencing Bob's Burgers characters, but yeah. Actually, no, Wally's the calmer version of Gale because of the whole art and possibly being mentally insane thing. Okay, I'm gonna answer some headcanon questions about Mizzie. Just give me one moment. Okay, so it's a brand new Shining Day, whoop-de-doo, and I actually have some other information about Mizzie. So Mizzie is actually pretty tall. Like, she's not as tall as Barnaby, Poppy, and Howdy, but she is taller than Frank and Eddie. Which makes it funny, because it's like, Wally's super short, and he's the big brother, and she's super tall, and she's the little sister. I don't know why I love that dynamic and find it so very, very funny, but I do. Also, forgot to mention her pronouns. Her pronouns are she, her, and they, them. Because why not? Okay? I don't make enough characters with multiple sets of pronouns. I mean, I have Monica who uses she, her, they, them, but now we have another character who does it. Yay! Also, the patches on her dress, yeah, those will not be consistent. Those will be different every single time I draw her, okay? It's just gonna be this running gag of the patches are never the same on her skirt. Like, it's just different things every time. So, yeah, there's my OC, Mizzie, Mizzrabelle Mimsberry, or Mizzie for short. Here's a reference picture. Here's the welcome home page. Hope you like her. Bye!